Go. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2. Good evening and welcome to episode 11 of the Jacksonian. As I have with me is the postgame host of Nebraska football at The Voice College Football and the co-host of Cheesy Corn Sports, the one, the only, Justin Adams. How you
What's going on,
doing, my
everybody?
man?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, pre-show, listen to you on Mark Rogers' channel all the time. Know you know your stuff. Know you know college football. So happy to be on here and joining you.
I'll thank for having me on. I just know some stuff here and there. When I get things right, I let people know it. When I get things wrong, I let people know it.
You gotta own it, right? That's the only way to get respect in this world of talking about sports and football. Is you're going to be wrong. You got to admit when you're wrong. So I've been wrong the last couple of weeks in a few regards, but I'm going to try to recover myself with some numbers here in a little bit. So.
Yeah, man. Would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, man? It's pretty awesome, man. You got some awesome stories.
Yeah, so just a little bit about me. My name is Justin Adams. I grew up in Houston, Texas. Actually, a small town. I'm from a small town outside of Houston called Sour Lake. Very, very small town. I live on a farm to market road when I was growing up. So yes, they still have those out there. So um, enlisted in the military when I was 17. I played soccer and stuff when I was in high school and all that, but I wanted to join the military. I already knew I wanted to join the military. So had my mom sign the papers for me when I was 17, had to convince her to do that. So that was fun. Um, so then I joined 3 months after graduation, went to boot camp, did 5 years and ended up getting out, served 3 years overseas in Manama, Bahrain, and then did 2 years over in Kings Bay, Georgia. And so did that 5 years, got out, really didn't have much of a plan when I got out. Military didn't really set us up very well. So been trying to figure it out and ended up in some good spots. I guess I was a crisis manager working for Amazon at a global security operations center. So the corporate facility, but it was one of those things that I didn't have a passion for it. I didn't love what I did. I was stressed and I wasn't happy. And I didn't want to live that way anymore. And I felt like me working for somebody wasn't it. It's just not my nature. I'm a very grind oriented person. I like to work and I like my work to be able to determine my success, not determine other people's success. So, um, a few months ago, I started doing my passions and hobbies. I've been singing my whole life. So, been polishing up my singing and, play piano. So been working on learning that a little better. And then, yeah, just doing this. Put myself in a position to where I could just do this and enjoy doing it and see how far I can take it. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be here, happy to be on and talking football, man.
There we go, man.
So,
And and of course we'll be talking some other stuff as well
oh
for
yeah,
sure. But
yeah, I'll get in. I didn't want to spend too much time with myself just initially, but yes, I currently I also am a boxer. Been boxing for about 8 years. I do coach boxing on the side and was coaching on the side when I was working too. So I'll get in a little bit more, of the boxing angle and stuff like that a little bit later. But yeah,
oh,
whole
for
lot, whole
sure.
lot to talk about for us today, for sure.
For sure.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, we might as well get this out the way. I
Mm.
don't want to upset Nebraska Nation, but I
Hey,
know this got to be brought up. But
yeah, yeah,
they are 0-2.
yep.
But however, the only way to go is up.
That's right.
What's
That's
it
right.
looking like for Nebraska Cornhusker Nation thus far?
I am one of the very few people that are not completely down on this team. I and I want to preface this by the one thing that I will say is Nebraska is a very polarizing team. When Nebraska's down, kind of similar to if Alabama is down. Alabama when they're down is a 10-win team, 9-10 win team. If and not even 9-10 win, 11 win. Um, but people love to pile on Bama when they're losing, right?
Yep.
Um, People love still to this day to pile on to Nebraska when they're losing. People say Nebraska is irrelevant, but Nebraska is top 15 each year, including last year, and the amount of total views as far as teams go per game. So they're always up there as far as viewership goes and all that stuff. So they're very much relevant, right? And Nebraska fans are really struggling right now, and I think the rest of college football is kind of being, and I don't want to say cynical, but I do think that the rest of college football is piling on Nebraska and not really kind of looking at it objectively. I think the fan base is being emotional, and I understand why, because we were told for 5 years with Scott Frost to exercise patience. What did we do? We exercise patience. And look what it got us. It got us burnt. Now
Disco
what people
Inferno.
yeah, what people have to understand, this is a new coach, right? We are carrying over that impatience that we had at the end of Frost's tenure over to Matt Rule. When all offseason it was told to us by Matt Rule himself, and he reiterated it in a press conference today, post practice, that this is not going to be a quick rebuild, nor is he trying to rebuild this roster quick. He is a slow builder, 2 3 years, right? But year one typically is a down year in Matt Rule, in what he does in his typical rebuilds. This, I don't know why people anticipated this to be different. I think that's a whole lot of like what Nebraska fans do, and I fall into it year after year going into it, is we get a lot of the good talk about camp. We're hearing from coaches is good. They're not going to talk bad about stuff that's going on. So that's what we have to go by, and that's what we have to use until we get on the field. So my job here isn't to react with emotion. My job is to look at the games objectively and try to remove emotion from it and see what we're doing good, what we're doing bad, and how many actual things we've improved upon last year that we needed to improve on. And that to me is what shows success. Wins and losses, a lot of variables go into wins and losses, but the strength of opponent first 2 weeks of last year versus the first 2 weeks of this year is significantly stronger. So we do have to take a lot of other things into consideration, and I'm looking for improvement in certain areas on the field, not necessarily in the win-loss column, because rebuilding a culture means you have to fix things in practices, things in games that have to be coached out of these kids before you start winning. So it's not insignificant to say, and I don't think it's irresponsible to say that me expecting those things to lead to victories is that outside the box. So yeah, and I can go into more of that in a little bit, but
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, there's a saying down here where I'm from. We always hear, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater."
yeah, yep. That's very true. Like, right, like and Matt Rule, to his credit, is not trying to be something he's not,
Right.
and a respect to Colorado, and what Prime has done there. But my thing on it is, since these two played head to head, now people are trying to compare where they're at, including our fans, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's here's my philosophy on that. I think Colorado's the type of program, since they don't have a culture of winning, that needs a shot of adrenaline in the arm type of coach that's going to get them polarizing and get them recruits. They got that, right? I don't necessarily think that same thing would have worked in Nebraska. I think Nebraska is built on tradition, built on culture, built on structure. They had a winning tradition and a winning structure and a winning culture, and that's what made them great. Now, Matt Rule is trying to rebuild that. He's not trying to get a shot in the arm of adrenaline where, and I'm not saying he's wrong for that. That is exactly what Colorado needed.
Right.
What Nebraska needed was completely different. And I think that quick turnaround is what Colorado needed, like I said. And us, we can exercise a little bit more patience. As long as somebody comes in here and starts establishing a winning culture, we're going to be able to get recruits because people want to be part of that. Now we do have to start winning to get that. I understand that, but that's just my difference in comparing the two, and why I think people are just a little bit overzealous when comparing.
Right. Well, I looked at the track record of Matt Rule, and he's been fantastic at Temple. I mean, he was able to get him a conference title. I mean, that's unheard of right there.
Yep,
And when he went to Baylor, it was just an immoral dung heap when he went there.
basically the death penalty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he couldn't be able to have coaches that were from the state of Texas, but he was able to get along with high school coaches in the
yep.
state of Texas.
And he kept
And
that.
yeah, And that told me right there, he's going to succeed at Nebraska.
100%. That's when we lost that pipeline to Texas. Is a lot of people understate that, the importance of that, and a lot of people understate the importance of when Nebraska stopped recruiting within the 500-mile radius of Nebraska. Back in the 90s, what made Nebraska good is the walk-on program, and they had the best strength and conditioning program of anybody. And so those guys were so much bigger and stronger and more physical than everybody. Well, now that's not the case. So they got to do it a little different, but they still need to get those hometown kids and the top guys in the state, keep those guys away from Iowa and other Big Ten teams in the Midwest. And that's another thing that they're starting to do as well.
Well, do you think that they're going to gain a California pipeline once USC and UCLA officially join the Big Ten?
I don't necessarily think so. We tried that. We did the whole Calibraska thing with Mike Riley, and we had the Flowbraska, the Calibraska. It was all these kind of branding they did on it stuff. It didn't pan out. We had Keyshawn Johnson Jr., his son. That didn't work out. A lot of the players, most of those players, Tristan Gebbia, who went to Oregon State, a lot of those players just didn't pan out and ended up on other schools. And I think the Calibraska movement was a complete failure. The Florida movement was a complete failure when Frost came over. Of course, he had ties to Florida. The most consistent foundational recruiting that we've had, and we've tried multiple, was the Texas, and recruiting heavy in Texas, recruiting heavy in Nebraska. And kind of like to your point, Matt Rule has kept those relationships with those Texas schools. And again, these are all small factors into what people aren't really paying attention to because they're too busy looking at results and box scores. And that's why we're here. We're here to kind of just shed some light on some of the other stuff. And so, but yeah.
What's your take on Jeff Sims? I've looked at some of his stats and they're kind of disastrous, but is there more to it than that, or is it?
There is. And I'll go into that here. So I broke down some numbers because I want to point out that Trey Palmer, his college dominator ranking, which is the amount of total offense that you produce for your team, his college dominator record or ranking or percentage, was 48%. And Trey Palmer is now in the NFL, right? So that is almost half of our total offense. So comparing the numbers, I broke it down to last year's per game averages, right? And I'm going to use this to kind of gauge kind of specifically where the offense is at. Sorry, I don't know why my camera cut out there, but so our offense with Trey Palmer last year, okay, in 2022 for the entirety of the season, 344.2 yards per game. Without Trey Palmer, that number drops to 257.3 yards per game. So that's total. Passing. So passing yards, 2022, 220.8 passing yards per game with Trey Palmer. Without Trey Palmer, 133.1. 2023, we're at 116.5 passing yards per game. That is 14 yards per game less. We opened the season last year with Northwestern and North Dakota. We opened this year with Minnesota on the road, Colorado on the road. We had North Dakota at home, mind you, and he did play the entirety of that game. That game stayed close up until the very end. So Casey played every snap that game. So 2-week totals. We'll get into the 2-week totals. Okay. 2022 with Trey Palmer and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, who was out week 2. 274 yards per game passing. Okay. Without 139 per game passing through the first 2 weeks. That is over 100 yards per game drop off, 120 something to be exact, or to be almost exact. But this year, 110 per game. So last year, without Trey Palmer and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, 139. This year, 110 per game. The drop off is not that significant. The reason I use Trey Palmer and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, especially Trey Palmer, because most of those stats are just without Trey Palmer. Only one of those was without Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. Trey Palmer was Casey Thompson's bailout. I don't want to say bailout necessarily, but he was that. He stretched the field, and most of those yards and touchdowns that he had were Trey Palmer's boom plays. I think Trey Palmer had 8 touchdowns. I think Casey threw 17 total on the season and 10 interceptions. So the thing here is, the reason I say that is because if you look at the other things, right, our rushing yards per game last year, we had 299 through 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks. This year we have 403. We're at last year between the first 2 weeks, 4.4 yards per carry. First 2 weeks this year, 5.15. Improvement there. Even the rushing totals for the entirety of the season, if you compare them to that, it's up. And again, much tougher competition. Minnesota on the road, that run defense, you know what I'm saying? And we averaged 4.9 carries, 4.9 yards a carry against that. Now, when I point to the total yards, there's also something else that I have to take into account. The amount of snaps, because that's also important. 20-yard difference between last year's offense and this year's without Trey Palmer included. But we've also played 135 snaps last year versus 119 this year. So less plays and then turnovers. This is the story. The last time Nebraska had a winning record was 2016. Coincidentally, that's the last time we won the turnover margin. When I say this can boil down to one thing, I truly mean this can boil down to one thing. The defense, everybody knows, is improved, right? Nebraska, much maligned for special teams in the past. We have an actual special teams coach, which we didn't have under Frost. We have starters on special teams. We actually have a kicker. Tristan Alvano is a true freshman. I understand he missed a 45-yarder on the road in Colorado. But during Scott Frost era, we had to actually have a kicker tryout and had a walk-on kicker come in and try to kick some extra points because it was so bad.
That is bad.
So that's improved. Yeah, the run game's improved. The offensive line's improved. Penalties have dropped. The competition has gotten tougher and stiffer. And when people lose people to the draft, look at Alabama, right? People expected a drop-off this year, right? Why doesn't Nebraska get that same thing when one of our best receivers in history, he was literally statistically one of our best receivers in history, might have been the best. I think he set the record. I think he set the season record, receiving record. We lose that, and people are just trying to throw Rule to the side as if he didn't just lose that type of a talent and switch over to the season. Now, I'm not giving Jeff Sims an out. Jeff Sims needs to hold on to the ball. I believe personally, until he gets a hold of that, he needs to be on the bench, because Anthony Grant, he played in the Minnesota game and fumbled one time, didn't play in the Colorado game. I don't understand why Sims is not just held to that same standard. That is one thing. That is the reason I think he should be benched. Also, he's not 100% the ankle. But, 8 turnovers versus 2. And I think everybody's looking at this big picture thing of Nebraska's just in shambles. But I think if we narrow it down and just compare what I just kind of broke down and what you see on the field, position groups are improving. We just had a much tougher opening 2 games, and Colorado was tougher than we thought. They were disciplined and we weren't. That was the difference. That was 13-6 up until 6 minutes left in the third quarter. That game was much closer than the scoreboard indicated. Our defense just wore out. They could only hold up so much. Our offense, the recipe for our offense was going to be to control the line of scrimmage, establish a run game, control the clock. But the problem was, when we were driving in the first half, we didn't finish. We would fumble. We'd have penalties. Something would happen. And we were giving Colorado the ball in their territory, and they were scoring when we were giving it to them in their territory. They weren't having to do anything. They weren't having to work for it. So that was our chance to take advantage of Colorado's mistakes. Colorado adjusted in the second half, and we started making more mistakes, and they started playing a good half. They took advantage of their second half opening. We didn't take advantage of our first half opening. And that's the difference. They made the plays. Credit to them. They made the plays. They did what they have to do. We didn't. Simple as that. But I still want to, I have to judge this team based on, and I still have to analyze this team. And I see way more good than I did last year. Everything has improved last year except the quarterback play. And I think that's the only mistake Matt Rule has made, is he picked the wrong quarterback. That's it, I think. But I haven't given up hope in Sims. I tend to try to rock with the guys on the team and support the guys on the team for as long as they're on the team. And I will criticize their play, but I'll never go after them as a person, as an individual.
Right.
So I don't want to attack Jeff Sims. I just think with the standard that Rule has set, he has to be consistent, and that was the only thing I question as to why he didn't do that. You know? Yeah,
totally, man.
that was kind of what I wanted to go through as to why I wanted to clarify why people should kind of calm down on the Rule slander and the Nebraska slander, and try to look at it from that perspective.
Well, you won't hear me slandering anybody at Nebraska, so
I don't think I have. I've heard you be pretty objective and just you call what you see on the field. It's been bad. It's been terrible, from what it looks like. Especially, like, I don't expect people to know those numbers. I don't expect people to know that stuff. That's, like I said, that's why I'm here. So I don't judge anybody who has something to say about it. I get it. Trust me, I get it.
Sorry, man. Well,
Yep.
So Game 3 is happening, and we're going to see Nebraska play Northern Illinois this Saturday on Fox Sports 1. Are we going to see Heinrich Haarberg or Chuba Purdy on the field?
So from the sounds of it, the reason Chuba Purdy came in last game was for that one snap was because Harburg's helmet came off. So Chuba supposedly has been, and Chuba's very, very talented. Yeah, I know. I'm used to saying it by now, but when I first started, it's such a weird.
I thought it was Chuba for some reason.
Chuba Hubbard, Chuba Hubbard got us
Chuba.
pronouncing it that way. But I think Chuba had one B, but Chuba Hubbard had us pronouncing that name. It's just an odd name, and I think Chuba Hubbard's the last guy we know that had it.
That's a funny name. I can't quit
it is, dude. It is, bro. But yeah, so I'm gonna call him Purdy from now on because now I'm not gonna be able to, I'm not gonna be able to not think about that now. So, but Purdy I think is more talented than Haarberg. And slightly, I think Purdy's a better thrower of the football. I think Haarberg's a better runner. I do think that Haarberg will probably get the start just because Purdy's still banged up. The reason he only came in from a snap is because he was dealing with an injury. And then so he wasn't 100%. And then Haarberg's healthy, and Haarberg can move, but Haarberg needs to work on some accuracy things. But he knows Nebraska. He's been there for a few years. And I think he can be very good. If people look at Purdy's numbers from last year or look at his numbers from last year, they won't jump off at the page at you, but that's because Purdy, for what it's worth, was brought into a really, really tough situation his first time playing. I believe it was on the road. I'm trying to remember where. I don't know if it was Michigan or something like that, but it was a very, very tough. He got thrown to the Wolves as a very young player, and him and Logan Smothers the year before, and then him and then when Casey was down last year. And it's just it's hard when you're a quarterback to get on the field and just produce immediately. I know people want instant gratification, but I'm sorry, some of these guys take time to develop. Joe Burrow, when he transferred from Ohio State, he wasn't Joe Burrow. He wasn't that. He wanted to come to Nebraska. We didn't take him on because he was a 3-star transfer, right? So, like, guys like that take time to develop, but that doesn't mean they can't ever be that with that development, which is why I'm not giving up on Sims. Sims needs time to be able to develop under Coach Rule, and I'm going to give Coach Rule the benefit of the doubt. And until I see year over year a regression, or I'm not seeing the improvements that we should be seeing, But I do think that Haarberg should be the starter week 2. What Rule said, though, is that if Sims would not have gotten hurt, he would be the guy. So that is literally the only thing that's going to keep him out of this game, is probably if he's not 100%. But an ankle sprain. I had a grade 2 ligament tear in my right ankle, and it over a year and a half ago, and it took about 3 months, and it's still not fully recovered. So depending on the severity, those things don't heal easy, and they're very easy to re-aggravate. They seem like a small thing, but they're so easy to re-aggravate. And if you don't let them heal fully, you're going to have a hard time for the future. So I think they're going to be smart with it. I think he's going to let it heal, because I don't think Rule's necessarily worried about, I don't think Rule is as worried about now as other people. I think he wants Sims for the long haul, so.
Yeah.
But I
But
think
yeah,
Harvard gives us a chance to win too.
well, I am curious about what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks because, I mean, only way goes up, and they got a good opportunity. And I'll be honest, like, Northern Illinois was playing giant killer against Boston College a couple weeks back, but then they're falling apart against an FCS school.
Yeah,
He thinks they were looking ahead to Nebraska.
it's very possible. And this opened as a 10-point spread, so that shows you where Vegas thinks that we're at. And again, I don't blame people for thinking that. And I'm not necessarily, uh, I'm not in a position to say we're going to go handle Northern Illinois. We haven't
No.
handled a team in years, so they need to really treat this as a must win and a game just as they need to treat it just like they did Colorado. They need to treat every game just like they did that game. And because they were locked in preparation for that. They didn't execute, but they we can't afford to take games off. We need every win we can get to be able to get to bowl eligibility at this point.
Yeah.
That Colorado coming into the year, that Colorado game was circled as a win. Um, so even more so now, we have to take care of business in the games that we have to take care of that we're supposed to, because we're now going to have to pull an upset or two to, in my opinion, to hit a bowl game and to be confident in that. Like, we have to win all of these games that we're favored in,
Well, I'm
and we
looking
have to
at
get a
the
win.
well, I'm looking at the rest schedule, and after Louisiana Tech, you have to deal with Michigan. But then you got to go to Illinois on Friday, October 6th. Then you got a week off for North to prepare for Northwestern. Then you
Mm-hmm.
got Purdue coming to your backyard. Then
Yep.
you got to go to East Lansing for Michigan State.
Yep.
And then you got to go back home for Maryland. Then you got to go on the road to Wisconsin, which they've been your kryptonite
Yep.
since the Big Ten West has been created in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Black Friday against Iowa on CBS. So I think y'all got a pretty good opportunity to go back to a bowl game. I mean, especially with what's gone on at Michigan State with Mel
Mm-hmm.
Tucker.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. No, I
Well,
agree. Because what a lot of people aren't taking into account, and a lot of Husker fans are taking into account. Yes, we did drop the first two games, and by all intents and purposes, we were supposed to drop game one. Um, and people are forgetting that we kind of outplayed expectation in that game. I would think, and except on offense, of course, but we still had a chance to win that game, and people didn't really give us a chance. I think the way in which we lost that game had people after us not looking at the fact that, hey, we were in there with the team that won 9 games last year, and I believe has improved this year. But the rest of the schedule, some of the games on the rest of the schedule looked easier after week one. Some of these teams didn't look as strong as anticipated, and that bodes well for us in the future. My thing is, I'm not a big predictor guy,
right.
but before I think, even comfortably look forward and predict those as wins, I want to see the turnover stop first, because that's not an easy task to stop turning the ball over. And it's hard to predict turnovers. I mean, it's impossible to predict turnovers. You can predict everything but turnovers. And that's what I'm trying to tell people, is where we've gone wrong is it's been turnovers. And so, like, for me, projecting the future schedule, that would be banking on us improving the turnover margin. Otherwise, we're not going to win a lot of these games. But I do expect the team to improve. And so I still think we're knocking on the door 5 or 6 wins. I think 6 is still doable, but this week becomes a must win.
Well,
Otherwise, it's not.
true.
And yeah,
That's all you
so
gotta do is beat Northern Illinois, which I believe you guys can do. Because I mean,
yes.
y'all are gonna get win number 1 on
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, and
Yep.
week 4 looks pretty easy as well. So that's
Yeah.
gonna be a good one. Illinois, I don't know how they're doing, but they've been kryptonite for you guys over the last couple years.
I think we've been our own kryptonite in the Illinois games, and we get off to really bad starts in the Illinois game. I think Scott Frost and his bubble screens. I don't know why he insisted on them, but those screens never worked in our.
Good grief.
They never worked, and they always so. I don't know if it was. I think it was the year before last. And Scott Frost opened that Illinois game with a swing pass to the running back, go behind the line of scrimmage, fumble, turn it over, give it to him in their territory, and we're playing from behind. I feel like every time we play Illinois, we're playing from behind because we got off to a slow start, and we start to come back late, and then of course we make a mistake or two, and then we just can't complete the comeback. I think we've outplayed Illinois thoroughly in those games. So Illinois, I do expect to beat. Because I still think we're better than people are giving us credit for. But yeah, Illinois and Northern Illinois, the games like that, though, the games that we're supposed to win, these games need to be the games where we start to get in a rhythm and we establish a number one wide receiver. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda is out for the year. Again, him and Trey Palmer were 1 and 2 last year. Jeff Sims doesn't have a 1. That's the issue we're running into, I think, is Jeff Sims doesn't have a 1. He's not comfortable back there. So the rhythm we establish in these next 2 games offensively need to be what carry us forward. So these 2 weeks are going into the Michigan game. But going into the Michigan game, that needs to be imperative. So I am of the belief that whoever starts this coming week should be the guy going forward, because whoever starts this week is the best chance to get in an offensive rhythm. And we need to ride the hot hand. There's no separation as far as I go in these quarterbacks right now. And so whoever's established himself as the guy, we got to ride that person. We can't just sit here and be like, we brought in Sims to be the guy. He has to remain the guy. That thinking will get us in trouble. That was what Frost did with Martinez. He would not sit Martinez.
No, that stubbornness will kill you every time.
Yep. That's what he did. He had the guys he liked, and he would not hold them accountable. He wouldn't bench them. That's why the play was like it was, and that's why the culture is the way it is. Guys weren't being held accountable for anything. So,
yeah, that was holy cow.
Yeah, it was a disaster. But
you, my friend, have had an awesome journey to becoming the post-game host of Nebraska football at the Voice of College Football. And let me just say, it's some fantastic analysis. I am loving it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Could you tell a little bit about how that happened?
Yeah. So, like I said, I was working at Amazon as a crisis manager, and I was there for a while, 5 years, and I was good at my job. I was there for 5 years, but a little bit later on, the vision of leadership in that building didn't match the vision of mine. And I thought that they, were doing things in a way that didn't let me, I guess, they didn't trust my work or let other people trust anybody's work enough to where they would let go of control. And me as a manager, I was like, I am working as hard as I can for them to tell me what to do still, and for me to work to accomplish their goals. And I'm like, if I put all of this time and effort, because I'm very self-motivated, self-driven into my own stuff, well, why don't I see how far I can take it? A lot of the mental health stuff that happened to me in the military has affected my ability to hold a job. And I'm in a position where, I get paid by them to, for my disabilities, and stuff like that. So I'm in a position to where I can, it's not much, but I will do what I have to do. I will save money. I will pinch pennies here and there. I have an old beater car. I don't care about materialistic things. And so that's led me here to where I can chase my passions and hobbies. And I've been a Husker fan, growing up, a Husker fan. That was my kind of escape from life as a child, rough upbringing and stuff like that. So I would go to cross country meets, and I would come home and I'd get ready for college game day, and I'd watch college football all day. My family says besides my grandma Evelyn, rest in peace. I never met her, but they said that I was the only person other than her to cry over a game. I cried in 2001, the national championship game when we lost to Miami, who now looking back is not the greatest team of all time, but one of the greatest teams of all time. Um, and so yeah, I've just been a Husker enthusiast and passionate about it. When I was a kid, I had ADHD, so I was a good student, but I'd be drawing the logos for the upcoming game and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm loving it, man. I'm loving talking Husker football. As y'all can tell, I can talk all day about this stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
and I
we're
know you
good.
can too. So it's perfect. But yeah, that was kind of my thing. And like I said, just chasing my hobbies, and it's paying off quicker than I thought. You know, the whole podcasting thing started last year. Me and my buddy, we talked and argued football at work a lot, and then people were telling us that we should make a podcast. So we started with some equipment, and we just started firing up live streams before the Sunday games to talk fantasy football. And from there, I just kind of started upgrading my stuff. And, like I said, I just felt like if I grinded and stuff like that, it'd start paying off. And, an opportunity presented itself. And I'm thankful to Mark for bringing me on and letting me, entrusting, me and, and kind of being able to break this down and know my stuff, and then also just, like I said, work as hard as I can and make something out of this. And it's all up into the effort I put into it.
It's all I've heard this saying from my mama, and she always told me take advice from those from where you want to be in life.
That's a lot of wisdom in that statement. It's a very powerful statement.
Yeah.
Because it's true. And what I also tell people too is, you want to take life lessons and you want to take notes of how people who are where you want to be, how do they carry themselves? Not just how they work, not just their work ethic. How do they carry themselves as a person, as a man, as a woman, whatever that may be?
Right.
What's their character? High character people are high value people, and people gravitate towards that. And my thing is, I've been real big into stoicism and the philosophy of being stoic and just really not worrying about anything and not having anxiety about the future, trying to worry about what I can control and just be nice, be kind to people, help people, protect people, and it's very rewarding. And I do think a lot of people will find, you know, a lot of peace in that. And so that's a very good point that you make. And I've learned that from taking these lessons from people that have kind of guided me there, and even people who haven't. Wisdom is wisdom, regardless of the source, whether you like a book or whether you like a person, wisdom is wisdom. And if it's there to be taken, take it, you know,
Well,
don't
take it.
dismiss it because you don't like the messenger. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give people is just, you know, try to, try not to be as emotional, try to worry about what we can control and understand that's all we can do. And you just be kind to your neighbor and be kind to people, whether you agree with them or not. So
Yeah, and I read something at one point in my lifetime is someone once said that you're an average of the 5 people that you hang with.
that is one of my favorite lines. I almost said that. I forgot. But yeah, you are the sum of your 5 closest friends. And
Yeah.
that's very true because I am learning that as I'm kind of growing in this, that a lot of the people that were there with me at Amazon, a lot of people that were buddy with me are now very resentful and attacking what I'm doing and coming after me because I talk Husker football. I put myself out there publicly, and people just and it doesn't bother me. Like I said, that's the good thing about stoicism. I don't let any of this bother me. I understand people are the way they are, and I don't know what that person's going through, so I let them
Right.
do that. But I don't need that person in my life. So instead of being reactive, I just kind of get rid of it and life's easier that way, man. Life has been so much easier by just not even just thanking them. Thank you for showing me who you are. When somebody leaves your life or somebody shows you their true colors, thank them
Yeah.
and just let them go because they did you a favor. And I believe that with friendships and everything. And then I believe that as you become successful and as you get into the mindset you want to get to, as you get into the mental state you want to get to, you outgrow old friendships. You outgrow people that aren't on the same thinking pattern as you. And that's necessary. And you're going to lose people, but that's part of the process. You have to. If you hold on to those people, you're always going to be resentful towards them. They're going to be resentful towards you. And it's not something that's good to have in your back of your mind, because you then are worried about doing well to convince them wrong, to prove them wrong. And I don't want to do this to prove anybody wrong. I just want to prove to
Right.
myself that if I bet on myself, I can be successful.
Yeah, I always hate it when people talk about the good old days of when they were younger and all that. It's like, is that all you got in your life, bro? Like,
Exactly.
I mean, don't you
Exactly.
want to look forward to the future and making life better for your future?
100%. And it's like the reason people do that is because, I'm gonna be honest, being emotional and being volatile and being rude and everything like that people tend to be these days is easy. The hardest thing to do is to work on yourself, admit your faults, admit your flaws, admit that, "Hey, I'm insecure, about this, and this." Instead of projecting that onto people with aggression and volatility and anger like I was, why don't I just what a man is supposed to do, in my opinion, a man is supposed to own that, and as a man, you need to fix that. That is your responsibility. It's not your responsibility to make excuses or blame other people. Nobody
Right.
wants to hear that, you know? People wanna hear people who take accountability for their actions and own their actions, an employer is gonna respect an employee who owns up to making a mistake more than a guy who's like, even if the other guy did do it, more than a guy who points the finger at that guy. That is one thing that people need to do, is ownership is very important. Extreme Ownership, it's a great book. Um, but own your flaws, realize there's a reason that that's there, and understand that's not you, and work to get that out of you, and then become the best version of yourself, and that is truly who you are.
Well, flaw I got is sometimes I get easily emotional about things, and that
Me
kind
too.
of bites me in the rear 9 times out of 10.
So what I tend to tell people is I get emotional, very, very emotional still. Um, The thing about it, and the reason I love to talk about it, it's what people don't understand is philosophy is a practice. Philosophy is not something you read and it just happens. The reason it's called a practice is because, just like with practice in football, right? You make mistakes in practice to get better, right? With philosophy, you implement those things in your life to get better. And the more that you implement those things in your life, talk about it, live it, the better you're gonna be. It's a gradual process, I'm still, like I said, very emotional. My PTSD made me very angry. I'm very much fight or flight. That's why I box. I'm very much on adrenaline. I love high risk stuff. You know, that's why I couldn't take Zoloft for my anxiety, because I put myself in really life or death situations without thinking, you know? Um, and so yeah, it's just one of those things. It's not going to be perfect, and it's never going to be. I'm never going to be like these philosophers that I read about, Seneca, um, and those guys, the Stoic philosophers. But all I can do is practice it every day, and if I mess up, well, I'm going to make sure that I learn from that, and I'm gonna try to continue the rest of my day, you know, living by these philosophies, and it slowly over time gets better. After Amazon, I was in a real tough place mentally. Amazon kind of did me wrong. I didn't leave that job. They fired me wrongfully, um, because
I'm sorry to
I
hear
did.
that, man.
It's okay, man. Like I said, it was the best thing that happened to me, and the majority of the people in that building, because I was there for so long, had my back. They knew that was me. They knew that the reason I spoke up for my people. I'm not one. I don't fit in a corporate environment. I'm not the one to fall in line. If I feel like my people are doing wrong, or their people are doing wrong by my employees, I'm going to speak up, and I'm not going to back down if they threaten my job. And I told my people that, I said I will lose my job defending y'all before I go out being somebody I'm not. I'm always about authenticity, and if they don't want me for who I am, then I don't want to be there. But the support I got from all the people there and everything, telling me, how much it meant to them and stuff like that. That was what did it for me. But there was a grieving process. I cared about their careers. I invested time into developing their careers and stuff like that. My co-host on my podcast, I helped him get promoted. He was one of my employees. Um,
Like,
and so they were underpaid, overworked. Well, the funny thing is, now everything I told them, the leaders that fired me are under investigation for those same things. So I'm taking action where needed, but I didn't try to concern myself with it too much. Like I said, I just from there, I told myself I can sink or swim, and I'm never going to sink. With all the stuff I've been through my life, at this point, I fear nothing. I don't fear that anything will ever beat me because I know without a doubt that it will, and that's why I told myself I'm never going to work for anybody again. I'm going to bet on myself, and I'm going to make it work. And if you if you set your mind in that place, and that's what the type of person you are, you will be successful. You just have to know 100% confidence and just do it. And I thank them for this. Like I said, I thank them for giving me this opportunity because I would not be doing this had they not let go of me. And that's okay by me.
Well, I've always heard that some people say that you have to have really bad things happen in your life to help you move forward. That's the thing.
Yep.
And
They say skin
you brought
callous.
up
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, sorry.
No, you're good. I cut you off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. You brought up at one point and before we started the show that boxing helped you with your mental health.
Mhm.
Should I go in that, man? It's pretty cool backstory, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like I said, I had a rough childhood growing up, and went in the military, and stuff, happened in the military that compounded my issues tenfold. And so I got out, and I was very much. I didn't know until probably about I was 28. So I got out of the military when I was 24, and it didn't take me until I was about 28 or 29, I think 29, to where I actually realized that there was an issue. I thought I was this very volatile, angry, aggressive, just kind of rude person. I was very ignorant and very stubborn and just very disrespectful and rude. And that's not how I was brought up. You're from the South. I'm from the South. Down, especially in a small town, and in the South in general, you're raised to respect people, right? It's all you have as a man is how you treat other people and your character. That is what shows who you are as a man. And even though I knew that was against what I knew, I thought that was who I was. But little did I know that's us. Anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is a secondary emotion. For me, it was a lot of hurt, pain, and stuff that I didn't realize was deep rooted until I started therapy. Um, it 5 years later, I'm still going to therapy, and I'm still a work in progress. But what happened during that phase is I realized that I have to find a way to get control over my emotions. And I realized that I was very insecure. And that also led to me projecting and being very rude and aggressive. And I would seek out confrontation a lot. And so, you know, I realized that, okay, I need to find a way to regulate my emotion. I need to get this aggression out in a healthy way. So I did MMA, I did jujitsu, I did Muay Thai, I did Kali, which is the stick fighting, I did combat submission wrestling, and I did jujitsu. I didn't really like the MMA side of stuff because it was slow paced. It was classroom kind of oriented. Whereas boxing, I trained in a Mexican boxing gym. It's a hole in the wall. There's no air conditioning in it. I live in Arizona. There's no AC in it. The ring's outside. Um, it's we go to war in there, and we fight. And so for me, I needed that. I needed that out, that let release of aggression. And I was a bodybuilder at the time. So I went into a boxing gym, 240 pounds, solid muscle, got my butt whooped by a guy who was 170 pounds. I was slow. I wasn't powerful. I was stiff, and I was getting beat up. But a couple things that did to me is it put me in a sport where I wasn't being judged on every little detail of my body, so I wasn't that insecure. It doesn't matter how you look in boxing. All that matters is, can you fight? And me at 195 pounds now, I can hit harder than I could at 240. I'm way faster and everything. So, but the biggest thing that it taught me is you have to control your emotion in the ring. You know, when you get hit, if you get emotional, if you get angry, you're going to get hit more. You have to be able to stay composed. And I do tell people all the time, getting hit, it doesn't hurt. People's anticipation of getting hit is what scares them more than anything. The anticipation of getting hit, the anticipation of things. This is why Stoic philosophy is good, because we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. And if you think about that, the worst things that you've played out in your head as the worst case scenario, if you think of objectively how many times that's come to fruition, probably hasn't very often, right? So with that too and everything, that also teaches you mental toughness and resilience, because you realize that, okay, this isn't as bad as it seems. This isn't scary. Um, if you get knocked unconscious in boxing, if you get knocked unconscious in general, I mean, but if you get knocked out, you don't feel those punches. I mean, your vision goes blurry or you just black out and then you wake up. And I mean, the punches that don't knock you out are the ones that, like, the most painful things are if I get like a jab and it pokes my eye, or like a thumb, like accidentally pokes my eye or something like that. Those are the things that hurt. But yeah, so it's taught me to control my emotion. It led to me being much more confident in myself, and that stuff was able to set me up to be able to work on my mental health more, and get to where I'm at. This tattoo sleeve right here, it's his name's NF, and he's an artist. He's a rapper who raps about mental health, and it's all about his journey through his mental health. And so all of it's imagery of his music and the parts of it that helped me. And so, um, a lot of things I do these days and everything and the reason I'm so open about it is because I've been there. I've been the person that I'm maligned now, and that's why I'm very much in the camp of you never know what somebody else is going through. So, I try to be kind. I try to be as nice as I can, but like I said, I make mistakes and I get it wrong. But boxing is, to me, and my coach has a nonprofit for at-risk youth, for people whose parents may have um, immigrated here illegally, and stuff like that, and they don't really have structure. They don't have parents. They don't have a home, and it gives them structure. It gives them a place to come and build mental toughness. They get bullied in school and stuff like that. So boxing is a great way for, the bullied to protect themselves. It's a great way for people who go into it with the right mindset. Like my coach teaches us to respect the sport, use it to defend and protect. You don't use it as a weapon. Um, and that's the main thing to take away from it is if you get into it for the right reasons, you get into things for the right reasons, you'll see the benefit. So
Well, and something about the mistakes I also heard is the smart man learns from his own mistakes, but the wise man learns from others.
100%. You have to take everything into account. You have to analyze everything. I always tell people this, but it's my philosophy is question everything. I don't care if I was raised to believe this is the way it is, 100%. I question it because the only way you can ever look at anything objectively is if you question it. And how are you to know that your beliefs aren't really, how are you supposed to know that they're really your beliefs if you don't ever question it? You know,
Right.
people will pick and choose what parts of their upbringing they want to bring with them into adulthood, but some of the stuff that they were instilled in and some of the philosophies and everything that was raised into them, they don't change those things. And to me, people don't even come close to reaching their potential. You look at our ancestors. Look what people put their bodies through back then to get to. They had to, and look what the human body was capable of. We live in comfort. I don't have air conditioning in my car because I choose to live in discomfort. Deliberate Discomfort is another book that's really good. But if you choose to always live in comfort, well, you're going to lose your resilience. If you choose to walk from your air conditioned house to your air conditioned car to your air conditioned. Now, I understand people have kids and I don't have kids and all that stuff. So I'm in a position to be able to do that. But even small things like that, little details like that people don't think about, we're comfortable. We're too comfortable. And you got to make yourself uncomfortable. You have to force that on yourself because society is coddling everybody. It really is. I understand times are tough, but for the most part, we're in a society where we're very, very comforted and isolated, and we got it a lot better than we think, in a lot of cases. And so, yeah, that's just kind of my take on it. There, it's just, you know,
Well, and
yeah,
something I like to make sure I do is not just look at people I agree with, but also look at people I disagree with because I'm thinking, maybe my belief system is wrong. Maybe I need to challenge my belief system every now and
right,
again, because
yeah.
I don't want to be in some kind of venting session.
Right. And it's funny as you say that because me, I grew up in the South, the Bible Belt, and I don't mean to get in religion, but I'm not
Right.
religious. And I say that to say the rapper on my arm that I admire the most, he's a Christian. He's a Christian rapper. He came up as a Christian rapper. Um, there is a lot of good that I think if people dismiss other people's views because they are their views, like you said, they're not learning any lessons. I think we can, as long as we can have a cordial discussion that doesn't get disrespectful. I have nothing against people that disagree with me, and I think we can all learn so much from each other. But social media and 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 people will say the media is causing this, but they still feed into it. And that's what doesn't make sense to me. If the media is causing it, why are you listening to the media? And why are you still on social media pushing these ideas? You know, the majority of people claim the media is doing this, but they're also part of the they're a cog in the wheel, you know. There's no self-awareness. And that's what people lack today is self-awareness. And like I said, you can take I take a lot of good from like my parents. My mom was religious. My dad passed away when I was 15, but my mom, my grandparents super religious. My papa's a pastor. Um, that doesn't mean I don't respect them or didn't take the wisdom from them. I took a ton. And you can learn from people you disagree with.
Yeah. It
So,
always helps, because I
yep.
mean, in a way, I learn more from somebody that I disagree with than everyone that's agreeing with me in the same room with me. That's the thing.
You have to think about the reason why that is because you were told every single thing that makes your point right by confirmation bias. People tend to keep the people around them that tell them what they want to hear. Confirmation bias is real. So if you're constantly being funneled stuff that backs your point, you're going to have everything about your side of the argument. What happens when you have to combat somebody else on the other side? You don't know anything about it. You jump to personal insults. You know, if you know
That's
everything
when you
about,
lose the argument, is when the insults start hurling at you.
yep. But in two, like if you think about it, I know all the sides of this one. I know this entire side, my side of this, right? The only way I can learn is to question the other side and discuss the other side. That's at that point, that's the only way you can learn because you know everything about your point, you know, and that's what people don't do.
Oh man. I'll tell you, I feel like I've learned a lot from
I'm
this
happy, man.
episode. I've learned a lot from you today.
I'm happy, man, and I hope people like enjoying hearing it, and I hope a lot of people learn from it. I know, it's a little bit off of football, but I think this is more important than anything.
Well, I mean, this is the second episode where it's
Oh,
non-football, so to
yeah,
speak.
oh, that's cool then. That's perfect. So I was like,
Yeah,
I'm
because
not worried about
no
taking up too
worries
much time then.
there.
Perfect. Awesome.
It 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 kind of looks like a college football show, but I just have everybody on there
That's
as much as possible.
that's great because I'm talking football all the time on the other shows. So I love to be
There
able
you
to sit
go.
here and just chat, chop it up with you and stuff like that. So yeah.
Cool.
Um,
And before we wrap the show up,
mhm.
for those who don't know where to find you, uh, here. So I guess this is the YouTube links where they can find you.
Yep.
Uh, YouTube.com at Nebraska football at the Voice College Football, and you're the co-host of Cheesy Corn Sports. Check out my man Justin Adams right there on Nebraska football at the Voice College Football. He is a top-notch post-game analysis host for
Thank you.
Nebraska
Appreciate that.
football,
Thank
and
you.
he is the go-to on Cheesy Corn Sports. And you can also check him out on Twitter at the H Town Husker, and on Instagram J Adams Physique 409. And you can also check me out on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. See what I got to say about other things? Monster topics. Like, comment, subscribe, click notifications on the bell, and I will catch you next time.
Peace.